If you've got charm packs sitting in your stash, I've got the perfect project for you to use them up. We're going to be making a baby quilt using 5-inch charm packs, and it's so quick and easy to make. This is the first of 2 quilts that I do for my quilt donation drive, and if you'd like to know more about that, we would love to have you join us. I'll put the link with all the details down below. Now, the quilt we're going to make is actually a free download by Ruby Star Society. It's called the Charming Plaid Quilt. Now, the original size is actually perfect for a big kid's quilt, but I've adjusted it to make it for a baby quilt. Now, I think you're going to absolutely love it. Let me show you how to make it. This is what you'll need to make the quilt. You could take a screenshot right now, or I have this all listed over on my website. For our baby quilt today, I'm using this beautiful fabric called Handmade Sweetness by Heather Briggs of my Sew Quilty Life. This comes out in September. So what you're going to need is one 5-inch charm pack, and we need to go through and pick 24 pieces. Then with our light fabric, we need to cut 16 5 by 5 inch pieces, so 16 pieces that are the same size as our charm pack. And then with our dark fabric, we're going to cut 9 pieces. So this is my dark fabric, this is my light fabric, and from here I'll be picking 24 pieces to create our plaid effect. So I'm going to open this up, and then I'm just going to take a minute and choose which pieces I want. So what we're going to do is we start with our dark piece, and that goes in the center, and then we're going to put a charm pack piece on all 4 sides, and then next to those pieces we put our light piece, and that creates our plaid effect. Now I've got this piece here. Usually you get 2 pieces of the same print in a charm pack. Well, I'm going to wait and use this a little bit later on so it's not too repetitive. And we don't need this because I've already cut that. So I'm just going to go through and just slowly pick the fabrics that I'd like to use. So I need to pick 24, so I can just put them here and audition them. It might even help if I put my light pieces there too, just so I can check that I'm getting a nice contrast. So I want my centerpiece to be my dark piece, my outer squares here to be my light pieces, and then these pieces to be sort of the contrast. So I'm just going to take my time and work out which pieces I want to use, and I'll meet you back here when I'm done. So now I've finished getting all my 24 pieces. I just laid them on top here, just seeing that they were going to look nice, and now I want to just arrange them so they're really randomly placed. Because when you get a charm pack, you're just getting 1 or 2 prints from the whole line of fabric. So it's not like all my pieces are going to be yellow. I've got yellows and whites and pinks and blues. So I really want to mix those up. Now what we need to do is we need to create this pattern, but we need to go 7 across and 7 down. So if I just shimmy this over a bit, now what needs to happen is I need to put another one of my dark pieces here, another pattern up there. Let me just grab a different one. Maybe we could put yellow there. This is all going to change. You know what? I'm going to pull my piles out because I think that will be easier. And then let's start putting them down properly. So isn't that blue pretty? I really am a sucker for these bows too. So it's going to look like that. And then we're going to have another plain piece here and another plain piece next to it. And I feel like we're looking very yellow, because I've got my yellow there. So let me put a pink one there. Now remember, we can place them all out and then we can have a good shuffle to make sure we're happy with them. So you can't see it on the camera, but I'm going to repeat this pattern. So I've got 7 across and 7 down. So remember, we're putting the dark in the center. We're putting 4 of our charms around the dark piece, and then we're filling them in with the light, and we're continuing on until we're going 7 across and 7 down. So that's 49 pieces in total. So I've got all my pieces so that I'm happy, and I have checked that I've got 7 across and 7 down for every single row and column. And I've also checked that each of the pieces are alternating. So for example, this column here, I've got light, charm pack, light, charm pack, light, charm pack, light, and then so on. Just checking that I do have my pattern in order, because it's way easier to pick up any mistakes now than when you've sewn your quilt together. Don't ask me how I know that. Now all I'm going to do is just stack them in the order that we want to sew them in. And if you want to, and you know what you're doing, just go ahead and sew your pieces together. That is great. Now, it doesn't matter if we sew them from the bottom or the top, they're going to be in the correct order. So I'm just going to stack them all in order. So in total, we'll have 7 little stacks. Now go the same way, however you're planning to stack them. So I'm stacking mine up from the bottom. Stack them all up from the bottom. Don't stack some up from the bottom and then some up from the top. Although that might actually work, I don't know. But I like to keep things really simple, do it all the same way so that I know I'm not going to get into a right royal pickle. Because trust me, if anyone is going to, that is going to be me. I just like to make sure I foolproof what I'm doing. So now all we need to do is sew all these pieces together, 49 pieces. Well, that's easy, right? Well, it can be tricky if you accidentally sew them in the wrong order. So I've got these number cards, and all I do is place them on top of each of the stacks. And that helps me know which pile I've got and which pile I'm working on. Now, they also have arrows going up and down, and that's telling me how to press them. And that's so that we can nest those seams really nicely. So I'm just going to pin them on so we don't lose them. And I'm going to put a link in the description below to get a copy of these number cards if you'd like them. If you already sign up to my newsletter, then you would have got a copy in your email today. That's one of the benefits of signing up to my newsletter, is that you always get whatever the free printable is for the week, if there is one, straight in your inbox, so you don't have to sign up for anything. Plus you'll have had all the instructions and everything already sent to you, as well as the link to this video. So there we go. Now I know which pile they're in, so as long as I don't mess up the piles, I'm going to be right. So let's get on to sewing. So I've got my pile 1 and 2 all ready to go. I've got my 1/4 inch foot on to get my 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm stitching at stitch length 2, and I'm using wonderful confetti thread. So I'm going to take the first piece in row or column, it's a column, isn't it? Column 1, and my first piece in column 2. I'm going to place them right sides together. I'm going to line up all the edges, and if you'd like to, you can pin. There's no harm in pinning. If anything, it just helps it be more accurate. If you are an expert sewer, then you probably don't need to worry about pins. So I'm going to just pop one in the center there, and I can see all my edges are lined up nicely. Now, I often get people saying, where do you sew on a charm pack because it's got all these little zigzags? Well, it really depends on the charm pack. I recommend you measuring it. I don't think there's really much of a difference. I can see just tiny little points poking out the edges there. It's negligible. So just work what you've got. Sometimes you might have to place your 5-inch charm pack so it's in line with the bottom line of the zigzag, if that makes sense. But these look pretty good to me. So I'm just going to start on the very edge, and I am going to be chain piecing. So I'm just going to sew. Removing my pin as I need to. Now I'm not going to cut my thread, I'm just going to carry on a few stitches. I'm going to take the next 2 pieces, place them right sides together, and sew down this edge. Now remember, if you want to, you could pin. I'm not going to worry about it today. So now I'm going to sew that next set of together. Coming right off the edge, taking my next set, and so on until I've sewn these first 2 rows together, or columns. When I've sewn the last 2 pieces together, I'll cut the thread. And now we're going to come right back to the top, open it up, and then we're going to take our column 3 and we're going to place that next piece next to our 2 piece, place them right sides together, sew, and then we're going to carry on and sew all 7 of our columns together just like this. So I'm going to, I think because I've got the paper in there and the pins, it kind of feels like it's dragging it down a bit. So I'm just going to pop a pin in on this first one just to make sure it's nicely lined up. So I'll sew that one. So coming right off the edge again, opening up and taking my next piece. Now I'm going to carry on until I've sewn all my pieces, and I'll meet you back here when I'm done. So I've sewn all my pieces together and they're chain piece, so all the pieces are attached now. Now we need to press. Now it's really a personal preference if you want to snip all the chains. But before you do that, I will snip mine. What we need to do is just take our numbers off and renumber the rows. So we can press the seams in the right direction so we can nest them, remember, but also so we remember to sew them in the correct position. So I'm just going to find number 1, number 1. We're remembering we went 7 across and 7 down so that they're going to match up perfectly. It's a little bit fiddly, but it does really help and save you time and angst with getting it wrong. Sewing your rows wrong, columns wrong, or pressing in the wrong direction. Little things like this can just save a whole heap of time in the long run. Okay, now I've done that, I am going to cut my chains just so I can press more easily. So I can just press each row as I please, but you don't need to. This is just a personal preference. So just being careful not to cut my fabric. I'm just going to snip all the chains. So now we're going to press all our seams, and I'm going to check my number cards to see which way the arrow is going, and it's going down, so I'm going to press all my seams down on this row. So I'm just going to set the stitches, then make sure my seams are facing down, finger press, we don't want any creases in here, and then pressing. And I'll repeat that for all the seams, and then I'll repeat this for all the rows. So just letting the number cards tell me which way to press them. So it really saves a lot of time and is helpful. So now we're going to sew our rows together. I'm just going to start with row 1 and 2. I'm going to place them right sides together. Then I'm going to nest all those seams. So we've got one seam pressed and going this way, one seam pressed and going this way, which means we can easily nest them. So I'm just going to butt them up against each other, line up these top edges, and when I can feel that it is nested nicely, I do like to just open it up and check I'm creating a nice straight line, and then when I'm happy I will pop a pin in. And then I will do that for every single seam along this whole edge here. Okay, now all I'm going to do is sew along this edge, and then I will repeat that for all the remaining rows. So I've sewn all 7 together. So I'm just going to start on that very edge and sew all the way down. Now, if I wanted to, I could have popped in a few extra pins in the middle here of each block, but I'm not going to worry about it. As I come up to the seams, I'm just going to make sure that they're being sewn down in the direction they're pressed and removing the pins as I need to. So now I'm just going to carry on and sew all my remaining rows together. Ta-da! So there's our quilt. Isn't that just the cutest little baby quilt you've ever seen? Now what I did was I finished sewing all my rows together. I trimmed my loose threads and I gave it a final press. Doesn't really matter how you want to press those seams. I just press them all in one direction. Now I hope you liked this quilt as much as I do. Remember, it is a free pattern. I'm going to put a link down below with all the information you need, as well as my number cards and my quilt donation drive, because we would love to have you join us. If you're looking for more ideas of quilts to make that are quick and easy and perfect to donate, I'll put my playlist up here. Thanks for watching until the very end. I really appreciate you.